I will deep dive into the Pendle for this AMA. And I thought that it is very great. It is because my background is the traditional finance. I was the investment banker for the 10 years in Korea market. So for me, the Pendle is very interesting. So I just want you to explain how the Pendle is working and then what is Pendle.
Sure. Simply put, right, Pendle is a venue for the tokenization and the trading of yield. Now, so before we get into that, right, I think it helps to just give a bit more context as to the yield, the types of yield within DeFi. I guess like one of the simplest form of yield is when you, as a user, right, if I have, let's say for me, if I have ETH and I deposit it into Aave, I get a ETH, and then this is I get like lending APY. So this APY fluctuates maybe between 1% to 5%, depending on the borrowing demand. So this is one form of yield. The other form of yield is actually in the form of like coming from AMM pools. So AMM refers to automated market makers. Examples of these products are SushiSwap, Uniswap, and then Trader Joe, Camelot. So when you deposit liquidity into these pools, you're providing liquidity to facilitate trades. And if there's any kind of trade that happens against this pool, as liquidity provider, you are stand to gain from some like trading fees. So these fees are also a form of yield. Now, because all these yields, say across like money markets and AMMs, they are constantly fluctuating because of varying demands, then it becomes a consideration for some people who want to speculate on this kind of yield. Because, for example, if you think that the yield is going to be 5%, but currently it's trading at 2%, you can actually get some exposure right now and write it up to 5%. So this is kind of what Pendle enables. But of course, simply put, right, aside from yield speculation, the other very important use case that Pendle allows is for the fixed rate. Yeah, because one hand, people speculate on yield. On the other hand, there's a group of people who are looking to just hedge or just lock in the fixed rate. So these are the two primary use cases Pendle enables.
Okay, so let's say I have a ETH and then I will try to the deposit in the liquidity pool and then my LP is generating the yield and then I can expect the increase my principal, the value of the principal. So
Yes.
those two the factor can be divided into different tokens on your platform so that the trader that can sell the yield based on the discount rates and then some guys they sell the principal, but they want to keep the keep the yield for the long time. So they
Yes.
can use this kind of the stuff for their the trading strategy. That is the correct.
Yes.
I think for the retail investor, it could be a little bit difficult to understand. But how did you the start the developing the Panda, by the way? Because it is some very complicated. So I think you have some the financial background, the financial knowledge about developing the product. Could you tell us what you did before the crypto world, and then how did you come up the idea with the Panda?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I started out in crypto almost immediately right out of school. And this was around like 2016, 2015, 2015 to 2016 period. I think at that point in time, my first interaction with crypto was actually through a research project that my professor tasked me. And I was looking into the different kind of business models within the fintech sector. And one of the businesses that enticed me was a remittance company that utilized Bitcoin as a tool for money transfer between Singapore and the Philippines. I thought that was very fascinating because, unlike the other business models, it was a completely different proposition altogether. And it was charging a fraction of the cost of most other businesses. And I thought that was I mean, the technology was fascinating. I thought it had a lot of potential. And then fast forward, Ethereum had an ICO, and then they were also, I mean, before then, shortly before then, they issued their white papers. So I read it. I thought it was very fascinating, again, because I was very encapsulated by the whole concept of smart contracts. Like, you can dictate how certain things work by putting it into codes, and yeah, just if certain conditions are met, you can get things done. And I thought the use cases would be very apparent further down. So fast forward, I got involved more involved in the crypto space within Singapore, because at that point in time it was really a very tiny space, and I got to know Loy. So Loy is probably most known to be the co-founder and the previous CEO of Kyber Network, and so that was actually my background. So I got to know Loy in maybe 2015 or 16 period. So we became friends. And when he started Kyber, I joined Kyber as one of the founding team members. And I stayed on in Kyber until 2019. Now, so if you ask me my background, this is actually the opportunity and the exposure at Kyber was actually what gave me a lot more exposure within the crypto space. So I think for me personally, I know DeFi quite intimately, because that was what I was doing pretty much straight out of school. So I've had like a decent number of years of experience. And then my co-founders, my current co-founders, we were also from Kyber, IM Token, and Digix. So we were all very familiar with the whole crypto ecosystem and DeFi concepts. So just fast forward a bit, right? So my co-founders and I, we've actually started building on some products back in 2019. So this was shortly after I left Kyber, and we were just experimenting with different kind of product ideas that we could work on. But we had a string of very unsuccessful ventures, so they all failed. But 2020, it was DeFi summer, and we were just farming tokens. And these tokens, if you remember, right, like kimchi
Yeah,
token,
yes, right.
all the food coins, all the lousy food coins, they were offering like 10,000%, 20,000% APY,
Yeah, yeah.
and we love that. But
Okay.
it also occurred to us that there was no way we could lock in the rates. And we
Okay.
compared the state of DeFi to a
Mm,
financial sector, a
mm,
mature
mm,
financial sector.
mm,
It
mm,
just occurred to us that in
mm,
a mature financial sector,
mm,
fixed rate products are actually one of the most important verticals.
mm,
And I think when we defer it back to our human psychology, right? Certainty is
mm,
always very, very valued.
mm,
So DeFi comparatively was very nascent, and it didn't have
mm,
any kind of fixed rate products in place. And we
mm,
thought that was a very big problem statement that we could work on. And we were very
mm,
inspired by that. So
mm,
subsequently, we decided to focus on ideating on solutions to cater
mm.
to this problem statement. So
Yeah.
that was like the motivation for us to work on
Ah,
Pendle.
I see. I remember that like the DeFi summer that happened in 2020, and
Yes.
it lasts like the half year of the 2021, and then it was crazy actually. So all the developers deployed the DeFi protocol.
Yes.
So
It was so ridiculous.
yeah.
So at that point in time, we had to farm like one coin, and then 2 days later we need to move money out to another coin because you need to keep chasing. But it was fun. It was very stressful though.
It is because my first the job in the crypto that was the BD of the Alpaca Finance on the BNB chain. So
Ah,
at the time, the Alpaca Finance is the largest lending protocol.
right.
So that I can learn about the DeFi. But thing is, I remember that the during that time, so many of the projects are growing very fast. Even in the Pancake Swap was very small at the time, but it growing very fast in the just under 4 months. So I think it is incredible the moment to the DeFi world. I think.
Yes.
So at the
Yes.
time, you thought that the fixed income, the product could be necessary for the DeFi world, so that you can
Yep.
start to working on it, and then that is the Pendle, right? So
Yes.
is it the first project you guys are trying to do the build on the DeFi world, where is there any other project you're trying but it's not successful?
Yeah, so working together, we've had a number of unsuccessful attempts in like building a business. But for DeFi product, that was the first. So before DeFi products, our team, we actually worked on mining software. So mining privacy coins using FPGA. So that was one. And then we also constructed ETL pipelines for layer ones. So basically, because there are a lot of data that exists on different blockchains, so we needed to extract these data sets, transform them into something that people can consume very easily, and then have them stored somewhere that people can access. So that was what we did, and we went to different layer ones and pitched the idea to the different layer ones.
I see. It's very interesting. By the way, how did you survive? Because I remember that the second half of the 2021 was very tough. It is because Elon Musk just tweet that the Tesla is not going to buy any the Bitcoin anymore. They are not
Yeah,
supporting the payment for the Tesla. So the speculator tried to sell the token on the market. So the market
mm,
is a crash, and then the father of DeFi is Andre, right? Andre
yeah, yeah.
just posted like, "Oh, I'm like I'm
Quitting.
yeah, it's right." So he left the market actually. So
Yeah,
then I remember that the DeFi that got the strong the downward pressure at the time, and
right,
then
right.
in the 2022, uh, there are two main events. The first
Yes,
one is Luna, and then the other one is
Luna.
FTX. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so my question is, how did you like the survive in the top market?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. I look back and I think there were a couple of things. So first and foremost, I think we were doing okay financially. So we raised money in 2021 during the bull market. So we raised a private round and we also did a public round through Balancer. Now, because of that, we were able to, I think we have, at that point in time, I thought we had enough runway. As long as we are disciplined with our spendings, we should be all right. And just because I've had a bit more experience in the crypto space, having been involved since 2016, I've gone through some cycles. And I think crypto is a very cyclical kind of industry. So bull market, bear market is part and parcel of the industry. It just so happened that last year was a very bad year and we were all coming down. And then this year, likely going to be quite stagnant as well and still at the low. But but again, going back a couple of years ago, I think we saw inspirations in a couple of products that eventually found a product market fit. And this is because I know projects like Compound, ETHLand, which is now Aave, and Uniswap, and all of them started out very, very small in 2018, 2017. So and we had interactions with these protocols at that point in time. And I remember that I didn't actually think too highly of these protocols because at that point in time, I was with Kyber. And I thought if no one's actually trading, who's going to borrow the asset? And then, yeah, so true enough, I think for the period of 2018, 2019, nothing much happened. And then 2020, during DeFi summer, everything started coming up quite aggressively. Uniswap became like the default AMM. And then Aave Compound collectively, I think they must have had like 30 to 40 billion dollars worth of assets deposited on the protocol. And this was all like a very in a very short span of time, the increase was very drastic. So for us, I think fixed rate in a number of years is going to be very, very useful and prominent in the space. When we started out, I think that we probably would have to go through what Uniswap and Aave and Compound went through back in 2017 and 2018 period. It took them about 2+ years to eventually come to product market fit. So with the amount that we raised back in 2021, we were reasonably certain that it was going to take a while for us to find the product market fit. And that's why we didn't spend a lot of money on unnecessary things, and we were very disciplined with our finances, and we were focusing on the product building. So this year we started to be a bit more aggressive with some publicity, but even then I don't think we have a very strong product market fit just yet. We need to keep trying. But at least I personally am quite humbled and inspired by the traction that we've had recently.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that every DeFi protocol that survive today is
Mm,
the actually is a degen the protocol that that has been created in very tough markets. Uniswap, Compound, and
yeah,
MakerDAO, and all the protocols that created during the bear markets. And then other protocol that created in the bull market,
yeah,
it, so it was the crash. So I think you guys are doing very well. And then I think the most impressive things for me is to wait for time that the peoples are demanding for your the product. It is very difficult, right? Because it's kind of no one know when it could be the working in the future. But
yeah,
you
yeah,
guys are
yeah.
bad.
It's a bet. It's definitely a
Yeah,
bet that we have
yeah,
on ourselves.
yeah.
But again, I think I guess like for me personally, it's just taking a longer term horizon.
Mm, mm,
Compared
mm,
to the financial sector, fixed
mm,
rate
mm,
is very, very prominent. So
mm,
I
mm,
believe that it's going to be just as important in
mm.
DeFi. So it's a matter of time. And it's really about s- living long enough to see that happen.
Okay. So what kind of the traders are using your the service and the product? I mean
Mm,
the Pendle.
yeah. At the moment, so we have a couple of different profiles and types of users. So because again, like Pendle has a couple of different use cases. So some people they just want to provide liquidity. So this is the first group of users, liquidity providers. So they provide liquidity to the protocol so that the trading can take place quite seamlessly. And then the second group are the traders. So traders are primarily the speculators of YTPT, so they will buy YT when it's cheap, they sell YT when it's expensive. And similarly, they buy PT when it's cheap, they sell YT when it's uh, increase in price, not a bit more expensive. And of course, the third group is people who want to just lock in the fixed rates and they don't speculate. They just buy PT and then they hold until maturity. So simply put, right, these different categories of users can be quite different. But what we've seen so far is that right now we're still primarily attracting liquidity providers who are a bit more sophisticated, and they know how derivatives work, and they're very comfortable with taking some form of DeFi exposure. So that remains to be the primary group of users. And then we have another group of users, typically traders. So these traders are, I guess, like they are definitely on the at the forefront of like the degen spectrum. So they are very hungry for yield and they love to trade. Just try to gamble a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, right. So this year, liquidity staking, the derivatives, the LSD is very the hottest topic in the Korea. It is because the Lido perform very well, and then it is very simple to understand how it works because actually the investor can deposit the ETH to LSD provider so that they can earn the yield. Of course, if the yield
Yes.
is not that the higher than like the other the DeFi protocol, but it is very the sustainable because around the 4% to the 5%, the yield
Mm,
is the naturally the generating from the Ethereum the network as the validator. So I think that moment is the Pendle is growing very fast this day. Before the recording video, I shared my schedule to my team member, and they said, "Oh, the price jumped like 10 times before." So I think the market's the valuation is reflecting to your the products the value as well because the LSD market is growing, and the other investors expect that LSD the projects are growing very fast in the long term, so that the Pendle can, providing the liquidity service, so that your token was the value at the higher price than the before. So I want to know how you can start the LSD the service.
Yes. So I think so just to go back a little bit, right? We when we launched V2, we thought the V2 product itself was reasonably powerful, and we have had quite a number of considerations put into the design of it, but we needed to find use cases. So when we started out, we actually had a number of different narratives that we attempted, but the one that is still working right now is the LSD narrative. And how we reinforced that was by working with a group of ETH LSDs and do co-marketing with them. So we actually started out end of last year, right? We listed Lido's STETH. So that was okay. That gave us some traction. But I think the first real traction that we saw with the ETH LSDs on Pendle was in January when we launched Aura RETH RepETH pool. So this is quite a mouthful, right? But effectively, it involves a couple of protocols. At the base, right, you have Rocket. Rocket pools RETH, gets deposited into the balancer pool with RepETH. So the LP token, the balancer BLP token, gets deposited into Aura, and then that Aura exposure gets tokenized on Pendle. So fundamentally, if a user deposits ETH assets from Pendle, they are going to get exposure in Aura and then Balancer and of course our ETH. So it's all like stacked, and because of that, we were able to convince the support from Rocket Pool and then Balancer and Aura to do a joint marketing. So four of us we announced the new pool, and true enough, right, we started to gain a lot more attention because again, for us, Pendle was very small back then, but Balancer, Aura, Rocket Pool, they were all very big. And if they were to endorse a small protocol like Pendle, I think it gives a very strong signaling that Pendle is doing something that the community was looking for. And so that was the start of it. So subsequently, that became a playbook that we followed, and we launched Rep STETH, and then we also launched Anchor ETH, and most recently Stuffy RETH. So with all these different assets, right? What we are doing with the protocols, for example, like Anchor ETH and Stuffy, was to request. So they have from their treasury deposited assets into the pool as liquidity seeding, and then on top of that, they also acquired Pendle token to boost their own LP positions on Pendle. So I guess like one thing led to the other. We were seeing a bit more traction, and this became like one of the more important narratives that we're trying to send or push to the community.
I see, I see. Well, I didn't know that you guys are the connect to the rock pool.
Yeah, that was actually, we were fortunate again, like through the
Mm.
intros to a couple of other pools. And yeah, so ETH LSDs remains to be one of the more important focuses for us this year, simply because we think now that after Chapella fork, the tech risk for just the tech risk has been minimalized. People
Mm.
know that if they deposit asset into like just becoming a validator, they can withdraw the asset.
Mm.
So now I think just the LSD use case becomes much more apparent. And
Mm.
I guess like as of yesterday, we saw like a net inflow of assets into these respective protocols. So I think there's a lot more potential that we can go from here.
Oh, okay. Thank you for explanation.